Coming up, we put the focus on the region's industrial history, starting in South Bethlehem, a neighborhood created after the Civil War and forged during the Industrial Revolution. We'll trace its roots to 1865, explore the legacy of the Laros silk mills, and take a look at what's in store for the future of the city, right now on Focus. Focus is for our community.
Focus showcases the people,
The places, and the issues that matter to you.
Focus on what matters.
You never know what you're going to see when you tune into Focus.
Support for Focus is provided by Univest, Banking, Insurance, Investments, Fellowship Community, Continuing Care with Spirit, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Focus, broadcast from the PPL Public Media Center at PBS 39. I'm Laura McHugh. In this episode, we explore the region's industrial roots. Founded in 1865, South Bethlehem remains one of the most eclectic neighborhoods in the region. Focus reporter Grover Silcox researched this piece of local history and joins us now in the studio with more. Grover?
Thanks, Laura. Although it's been part of the city of Bethlehem for almost 100 years, in many ways South Bethlehem has retained its own complexion, personality, architecture, business atmosphere, and sense of place. It's rich in ethnic diversity, culture, and customs. It was home to one of the world's most powerful companies and is home to Lehigh University, among the top universities in the nation. The more I learned about the people and history of South Bethlehem, the more I wanted to know. Welcome to South Bethlehem. It grew up along the banks of the Lehigh River. In the distance, homes dot the side of South Mountain. They appeared there in ever-increasing numbers as people migrated here starting in 1861.
I think it's the interesting part of Bethlehem because that's where all the immigrants came.
Here, hardworking men and women carved out a life in iron and steel.
You had more diversity in South Bethlehem than you practically had anywhere else in the country.
They came to work for Asa Packer's Bethlehem Iron Company under the direction of his protege, Robert Sayre, and his engineering genius, John Fritz.
Here is where the Industrial Revolution in America first reached full flowering in the building of this great steel plant.
The ironworkers fired up the furnaces with coal from Mauch Chunk. They shaped molten iron into quality rails for Packer's Lehigh Valley Railroad and even the Union Army during the Civil War.
Lots of other industries came in associated with iron fabricating companies, cigar making, later on silk mills. It was like maybe one of the first industrial parks.
As industry grew, so did the community around it.
By August of 1865, petitions were made to incorporate the borough of South Bethlehem.
It became a borough on August 21st, 1865. 48 years later, it would merge with the North Side and become part of the city of Bethlehem. Also in 1865, Asa Packer founded another South Bethlehem institution, Lehigh University.
What Packer did, the Episcopal Church at that time really had some of the most highly educated men in America, and a lot of them had important jobs in academia. So he kind of turned over the founding of the university to the church people who devised a curriculum and really did all the work.
In 1872, Packer helped found St. Luke's Hospital in Fountain Hill, just west of Wyandotte Street.
The founding of St. Luke's in 1872 was really in response to industrial accidents.
Primarily accidents on the railroads and in the iron factory. The next pivotal year, 1873. Bethlehem Iron begins making steel using the Bessemer process. The original foundry still stands on the former mill property.
That is the last remaining Bessemer building in the world which actually has a claim, and a very good claim, to being the oldest.
The steel became, quote, the arsenal of democracy.
World War I, it was the single largest source of ammunition and guns for the Western Allies by the year 1917, 1918.
Can you imagine in World War I when 20,000 people worked in that plant?
In World War II, Eugene Grace, the Steel's president at the time, promised President Franklin Roosevelt 1,000 warships for the war effort.
So they produced more than 1,000. That goes everything from aircraft carriers, battleships, destroyers.
The Steel had also developed the H-beam under Charles Schwab, who had acquired the company in 1903. The H-beam was the structural steel that enabled construction of skyscrapers. Bethlehem's steel also went into bridges, such as the Golden Gate in San Francisco and the George Washington in New York. And all that steel came from South Bethlehem.
I found an interesting note produced or written by Bethlehem Steel right around World War II, where they indicated that 58 nationalities were represented as workers at the Steel. 58 nationalities. And 10,500 were foreign born. So it was a big chunk of population.
The Polish, Italians, Hungarians, the Czechs and Windish, Hispanics, and other ethnic groups all came to South Bethlehem. They established beautiful churches. They brought customs and created a melting pot as strong as the melting pots in the great furnaces along the Lehigh.
What's interesting about the working neighborhood of South Bethlehem is in its churches. 28 different churches at one time. So if there was a Greek population or a Mexican or an Italian, their churches represented where their proximity of residence was.
Southside Bethlehem has retained many homes, churches, and other buildings from the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
When these were built, they were visually rectangular from street to attic, but they were finished off with cornices, unique to that particular building, and they're all different.
South Bethlehem enjoyed a long period of growth. But when the steel plant shut down in 1995, it hit hard. The future looked dim. But the community faced the challenge. And today, the old mill property is a destination center with a casino, an arts and culture plaza, and historic preservation. Where once blast furnaces filled the air with smoke, now performers fill the air with music. It's a good start in the effort to restore prosperity to a community with a proud 150-year history. For Focus, I'm Grover Silcox reporting.
We now head across the Lehigh River to the Laros Silk Mills. R.K. Laros founded one of the most successful silk mills in the nation. He employed thousands of workers and contributed mightily to the greater Bethlehem community. R.K. Laros died in 1955, and the business has long since closed. But the Laros Foundation continues to fund and support a variety of Bethlehem's community organizations. Continuing his dedication to the valley, Laros called home.
Jeremy Hatchie, a senior at Moravian College, spent long hours in Reeves Library researching and writing The Legacy of R.K. Laros, a silk industry giant and community leader in Bethlehem during the first half of the 20th century.
He always thought of the common good with everything he did.
The mammoth brick silk mill building he owned and operated still stands on East Broad Street in Bethlehem. It's now an office building, but in its heyday between the 1920s and 1940s, up to 2,000 silk workers processed and wove the finest silk garments and products right here.
He created the first dimensional slip, a slip that was made to fit different body types. That was revolutionary in its day. That was in the 1930s.
Born in Easton, Laros graduated from Lafayette College in 1914. Later, his children went to Moravian Academy and Moravian College. His venture into silk manufacturing helped make the Lehigh Valley the capital for silk in the United States.
We had taken all of his money out of the bank in June of 1929 and was able to keep all of his employees working throughout the Depression by paying them in cash.
Laros sustained that workforce all the way through the 1930s, which is really remarkable.
It worked to capacity through the Great Depression. It was on the cutting edge of the textile world. It developed parachutes for the troops in World War II.
In 1950, Laros branched out with a new medical product.
It even developed a blood plasma substitute that was used heavily during the Korean War.
In 1952, R.K. and his wife Helen created the Laros Foundation to support the public good.
There are 150 different organizations that have benefited from the R.K. Laros Foundation in the intervening 60-plus years.
It has awarded a total of $7 million in grants.
St. Luke's University Hospital Network is the #1 recipient of grants. Mr. Laros was on the board there. Moravian Academy and Moravian College both claim the children, the 5 Laros children, as their own alums. They both are in the top 10 recipients of grants.
Those funds mean that we don't have to bring it out of tuition, so he's paying forward constantly over and over again.
Other beneficiaries include Bethlehem's Public Library, the YMCA, the Bach Choir, and Arts Quest. R.K. Laros died in 1955, but his generosity goes on.
He chose to take good care of his family, his industry, his personnel, but also look out for the larger community.
Jeremy and fellow Moravian student Taylor Jennings and historical consultant Martha Capwell Fox, along with Sharon Jones-Zondag, executive director of the Laros Foundation, are nearing completion of the Laros legacy for the Foundation's website. Recently, Jeremy presented his history of R.K. Laros at a community gathering held at Bethlehem's Public Library. In attendance were members of the Laros family, including R.K. Laros Jr., the founder's son, a retired OBGYN physician.
He thought it was important to do things for the city of Bethlehem.
Dr. Laros recently received the Association of Fundraising Professionals Lifetime Achievement Award for his 47 years of service as member and chair of the Laros Foundation.
He was very, very positive about other people and to help them if he felt they needed help. That's the sort of person he was.
The sort of person whose legacy continues in the words and vision of these Moravian College students, his foundation, and through the good works which continue in his name. For Focus, I'm Grover Silcox reporting.
Thank you, Grover. We now turn our focus from the past to the future and a development incentive paving the way for business development. For more, here's Focus reporter Brittany Garzillo. Brittany?
Thanks, Laura. Neighborhoods within Bethlehem's City Revitalization and Improvement Zone, also known as the CRIZ, could see major developments over the next few decades. The 130-acre zone is designed to revive and redevelop parts of the city, and with the opening of its first business, it has many in good spirits.
There's reason to raise a glass at the new Social Still in South Bethlehem.
So vodka.
In this one?
Whiskey in this one.
Yep.
And
this one's our gin basket.
Adam Flatt, co-owner of Franklin Hill Vineyards, and his latest venture, The Social Still, serves up custom cocktails through craft distilling.
So everything starts here?
Yep. This is the kettle. This is basically the engine of the entire process. We heat up the spirits and we allow it to vaporize and we collect the alcohol on the other side.
Lit to mimic Bethlehem Steel's blast furnaces nearby, this restaurant and distillery is located on 3rd Street in South Bethlehem in the former Gastoni Savings and Trust Bank.
So Adam, it really seems like you preserved the history of this old bank and trust.
Yeah, we sure did. We kept the vault. We also repurposed our safe deposit boxes for a point of sale station and our hostess station.
And inside this room, private dining experience?
Yeah, people can reserve the vault room. When I first came in, it had drop ceilings, offices, cubicles, and the building was crumbling. And we've done an amazing restoration, preservation of the building and brought it back to its original glory.
With restorations from flooring to crown molding, the Social Still serves both tapas and a taste of history.
This building, oh my goodness, Jim and I worked at the Bethlehem Steel Corporation, so we go back to about 1964, and we just come over here every payday to cash our checks.
It's wonderful that what's going on here on the south side of Bethlehem and the revitalization, and I'm very happy for the people who live in this area now.
Flatt says this project would not have been possible without Bethlehem's City Revitalization and Improvement Zone, also known as the CRIZ. A statewide pilot program approved for Bethlehem in 2013, the CRIZ allows certain state and local taxes collected within the zone to be used to repay debt associated with the projects.
It's designed to accelerate projects in the city of Bethlehem. We have several projects that are long-standing, slated for development, but hadn't necessarily gotten off the ground. And so it will help to expedite the development on those sites.
Alicia Miller-Carner is the Director of Community and Economic Development for the City of Bethlehem and oversees CRIZ projects.
The zone is all over the city. There are acres in Lehigh County, which is West Bethlehem portion, in the north side of Bethlehem and in the south side. We also have some acreage, about 35 acres, in the industrial area. There's 130 acres in the CRIZ. This is the south side where the largest concentration of parcels are in the city. We have the 378 corridor parcels. We have a number of sites in the traditional downtown between 3rd and 4th Street, and then we have the Bethlehem Steel site. This is the locations of Greenway Commons and the Social Still. Greenway Commons is going to be developed in an area that hasn't had a building in 50+ years. So there were structures on the site, and it's across from the community college along 3rd Street. It'll actually surround the Social Still, and so they'll see new life and new development in a block that hasn't seen development in a very long time.
The CRIZ zone is an economic incentive for the specific reuse of land and buildings, and particularly buildings that would otherwise be very difficult to do on a straight market competitive basis.
Don Cunningham, president and CEO of the Lehigh Valley Economic Development Corporation, says one of the sites included in CRIZ plans is Martin Tower, the 21-story office building located on the west side of Bethlehem, which served as the international headquarters for the Bethlehem Steel Corporation. It has been vacant since 2007.
There's proposals there for residential properties around the base of it, and some reuses of the tower for office, for residential, and for retail. That's kind of the big project that the CRIZ hopefully can incentivize to occur. It's got a lot of life safety issues. Asbestos has to be removed, sprinklers have to be put in. So having an economic development incentive to help a developer try to get it done is critical.
Cunningham says Bethlehem residents shouldn't expect the building bonanza of downtown Allentown's Neighborhood Improvement Zone, also known as the NIZ.
People in Bethlehem shouldn't expect this explosion that you see in Allentown, where there are all of a sudden 4, 5, 6 buildings coming out of the ground in 18 months. It's just not the same economic incentive.
This is a 30-year designation, so we have the opportunity to collect the taxes for all 30 years. It's hard to predict what's going to happen 15 years from now, but I would expect that the next 10 years are going to see significant activity in the CRIZ.
You know, you're talking about 130 acres of land, harder to develop infill parcels. You know, it'll be a decade's worth of growth and job creation.
Carner expects to see more than 5,000 jobs associated with the CRIZ, but says there are still a lot of unknowns.
It's extraordinary that a city of 75, 80,000 people would transform economically this quickly out of a heavy industrial base into this mixed-use, vibrant economy and drawing people and young people back into the city.
I think it's the next revolution here in Bethlehem. We just happen to be first, but there's a lot of great things to come.
With more than $1 million investment between Flatt and his developer, it's safe to say the Social Still is just a taste of what's to come. For Focus, I'm Brittany Garzillo reporting.
Thank you, Brittany. That wraps up our show. We'll see you next week. Until then, remember to focus on what matters.